Hi class, and welcome to this week's lesson, lesson 12. Before I jump into this week's lesson notes, I just want to apologize for this video being so late. I do not like to do that. I try and usually have these done in an orderly, in a timely manner and posted so that you see it at the beginning of the week. Kind of fittingly enough, last week I had to make a decision, and that decision was to postpone doing this because of other things that were going on. As I sent out the email on Friday last week, just giving you a heads up, last week had been a bit of a whirlwind for me here. Just everything that's going on in the world is crazy enough as it is with the coronavirus. And then at work we had a fairly large earthquake that did some damage to our building. So I got to spend the weekend trying to get things repaired and back up and running so that we could be running. One thing, I know this isn't about the class, but we are a food manufacturing facility, and so with everything that's going on in the world right now, we're actually a lot busier than we normally are because we supply food to some of the major grocery chains out there. And then we had an earthquake and it damaged some of our equipment and we weren't able to run. So we had to work pretty much around the clock, off and on, getting things fixed so that we could be able to be back up and running. And that is why I did not have a chance to get this video made for you. It was a very busy week last week. So far I'm making this on Monday night, and so far it's calmed down a little bit. Monday went well, so let's hope that kind of get back to a normal schedule here. Enough about that. Let's go ahead and jump in about lesson 12, okay? This week, as we start off in our professional skills, we are going to be talking about using PowerPoints and learning how to make a PowerPoint and some good tips on what a good PowerPoint is. Probably one of my favorite things as I look through the lesson, and I see this a lot, so it's a really good thing to remember, is that PowerPoints are not meant to necessarily be like an essay. You want it to be a visual representation of what you are speaking about. When you give a PowerPoint, usually you're giving a presentation of some sort. So it does not need to have everything on the PowerPoint that you plan on saying. I think of it kind of just as notes, like some highlight points, and then you talk about those. All too often, I'll admit, in the business world that I've seen, there's a term, sometimes people will say death by PowerPoint, and what that means is just really long PowerPoints with lots of text on the slides. That's all too common. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have a long PowerPoint sometime down the road. There's sometimes, I've been to some presentations and meetings where you needed a long PowerPoint to cover everything. But just as you're making your PowerPoints going forward, just keep that in mind, keep those tips in mind. Think of your audience, always have your audience in mind when you're making a PowerPoint. We'll also be talking about income statements. This is a great tool to learn. This is a really, they've watered it down for this assignment and this for our group project that we're doing, but it's a great thing to learn these concepts because any business is going to use these, and if you understand them, it can kind of help you see how well the business is doing and maybe where there's some areas that you need improvement in. I use a income statement. We call it, it's also referred to as a P&L, which stands for profit and loss. Every month, at the end of the month, I look at my P&L and I see, did I hit budget? Did I not hit budget? Where was maybe I overspending? And that kind of guides me as a manager as to where I need to go and look at and make some improvements in, right? Because we want to make sure that we're being profitable. Okay, so that's going to be our professional skills this week. In math, we are going to be talking about loans and interest. Another great section. This is information that you can use in your personal lives all the time. We're also going to be applying it to your business, but it's a great thing to understand that when you go to the bank to take a loan, whether it be for a house, home renovation, maybe you're getting a home loan, a car loan, you understand how the bank calculates your monthly payments. And it also does not hurt, to double check the math of the bank, right? You can always, what's the interest rate, what's the long term, get all the details, and you could come and plug it into Excel and calculate it for yourself. One thing I will say about the math and the group project this week is make sure that you do the math before you do the group project. You will be using the payment and the loan and interest calculations in your group project this week. So make sure you do your math portion first. With that, let's talk about the group project. The group project, you're going to be creating that income statement. You're going to look at a what-if scenario if you had a loan that you had to pay as part of that income statement. As you create this income statement, and I would recommend that you use your pricing and everything that you've already, all the data that you've already collected from your previous assignments, okay? And you're going to create that income statement for a year. It's a, again, it's a fun exercise to go through. It's not maybe necessarily something that every one of you will have to use in the future. A lot of times in businesses and stuff, like even though I look at a P&L once a month, I don't create the P&L. The financial group does. So if you choose to go down the path and become like a financial analyst or what's called a controller or something in finance, you might do these more often. But I think it's still a good exercise because then you get that good understanding of how it's made. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. And that's really all I have for you as far as the work for this week. One thing I do want to recommend is next week we will be wrapping up the group assignment. What that's going to be, it's going to be putting together a PowerPoint of everything you've done. Don't get a jump start on this too soon, but as soon as you're done with the group assignment for this week, if you want to start working on next week's, that's great. It'd be good to get a jump on it because it will be quite a bit of work. It's kind of compiling everything together. So go ahead and get a jump start on that if you can this weekend. All right, well, I know I've gone way over my time limit, so I want to wrap this up. Thank you for being understanding. I'm sorry that assignments didn't get graded in a timely manner last week and that this video is late. I will be back on track by the end of this week, though. So have a great week, and we'll see you next week.